In this video, I'm going to walk you through a field-by-field review of the ITAM purchase record in Flexera 1. The credentials you'll need to perform these functions in IT asset management is the default operator's role or higher. Let's get started. From our procurement menu, you'll see there are many purchasing views. You can create a new purchase from each one of those views by opening up the view, and you would see a Create Purchase tab. I've opened up the Unprocessed Purchases view here. I'm going to click Create a Purchase, and it would give you a blank purchase order record to create from. I'm going to cancel this now and also show you that you can open an existing record, and this is where you would go to edit that record. This is where you would also go to if you wanted to add an additional line to this purchase order, WebSphere maintenance. Each purchase order number can have multiple lines. As you can see, we're looking at item 1. If you need to get to the second line, you would just click Copy to Purchase, and you would get a new blank record with the top purchase order number, purchase date, and vendor previously filled in. Let's walk through our purchase record. Each purchase line item would have a purchase order number, the date of the purchase, and the vendor that is being purchased from. Next, we'll look at line item details. And this is item 1, adding records to this purchase. These items would auto-numerate to whatever the next one is in the series for that. You would provide a description of the product or that you are purchasing. You would provide a SKU number. If that SKU number is recognized in our SKU library, you would see an in SKU library. You would be able to hit the down arrow and look at the additional properties that we can get from a recognized SKU. One being how it's purchased, the quantity that's purchased, which purchase program it's being used under, and those types of things. If a SKU is not in our SKU library, it would show up as unrecognized. An unrecognized SKU can still be recorded, but you don't get the values that you obtain with the recognized SKU of the additional properties. If the SKU is recognized, the SKU will automatically populate the quantity per unit, would automatically populate the publisher, would automatically populate the purchase type, and would automatically populate whether it had maintenance or not. So the SKU will populate a lot of items for you on this record, so you don't have to. In our case, we purchased 1,200. The quantity per unit was 1, and so our effective quantities that get processed to the license is 1,200. Our publisher is IBM. So our vendor is IBM and our publisher is IBM. We're purchasing an IBM product directly from IBM. And so in this case, our publisher is IBM. These can be searched. You can search the vendor table and select the publisher that you so need as well. There is a status. All new purchases start as new. You can come back in after the fact and mark them either pending, completed, and or if you have canceled those. So you can change that status on those. The next section is purchase type. Purchase type is very important, especially when it comes to software. I'm going to walk through these. Anything that starts with the word software, and that includes software, software upgrade, software maintenance, software baseline, and software subscription would all go to the unprocessed purchases view to be processed to a software license. If you don't provide a purchase type, or if you use an import and your purchase type does not match one of these purchase types, it would default to not set, and not set would also populate to unprocessed purchases, meaning that you should open that up and determine what the actual purchase type is and set that before processing that. Software is for perpetual licenses, and it can have maintenance or not, but this is a base license either with maintenance or not. If it has maintenance, then the tick box would be checked and you would provide an effective date and an expiry date. Next one is software upgrades. Software upgrade requires an existing license. So if you have a software upgrade purchase, you must have an existing license to take entitlements from. This is not something you can create a new license record from, is software upgrade. So if you do select software upgrade, you would take quantities from one license and move them to the upgraded license that you purchased. Next one is software maintenance, and this is for maintenance renewals. Any renewal of maintenance that does not have a base license associated with this would get processed under software maintenance and does require an existing license to process that to. You are adding maintenance to an existing license through renewing that. Next one is software baseline. Software baseline can be used to bring in a base quantity to a license, resetting the quantities available to that baseline quantity. It works just as software does, with the exception if you use two of those to one license, one would override the other. Last but not least is software subscriptions. So everything until now, we've been talking about perpetual licenses, and now we're talking about subscription licenses that would time out. Software subscription would be selected, and you would need to have an effective date and an expiry date. I'm going to return this to where it was, and under software maintenance, and we'll move on to our next fields. There are other purchase types of other hardware maintenance, disk kit, services, those kind of things that you can track and purchase within the system. Those would be just tracking of those purchases and updating those purchase records. There is nothing that needs to be processed from that perspective, so those would not go to unprocessed purchases. Next field is contract number. If you have a contract that you're making these purchases under, you could link that to the contract. In my case, I'm linked to the IBM master contract. You could search all contracts and link the according contract in that manner. It will also pull through the description of the contract. This next section that says maintenance, if the tick box is checked, it means it has maintenance, and that means you should have an effective and an expiry date populated. If that tick box is unchecked, it means you don't need to populate any dates, that is a perpetual license with expired maintenance on that. Next area would be volume purchase program. This is a legacy field or two that was there to support Microsoft Select 6 agreements, where you had to forecast point purchases in a product pool and report on those to receive discounted pricing. Those still remain in the tool because we had older clients that had that data populated as well. Next field is a notes field, and this is where you could put comments on this purchase. This is the general tab of our purchase, and we are still on line item number 1. I'm going to move over to the financial tab now, and you can see there is an invoice number and an invoice date. If you do have an invoice number and invoice date for this purchase, you most certainly could populate that and mark it complete on the status on the General tab. Cost details, you want what quantity 1 cost, and we populated $48, and then the subtotal is calculated from there. You can track item sales tax, and that would be the sales tax on this particular item. Keep in mind that this purchase can have multiple lines and multiple items. You can also track the item shipping and handling. Shipping information, you can track shipping date and shipping locations on your purchases if that is data that is required. Next tab is ownership. The ownership tab would determine what location, corporate unit, or call center is purchasing these licenses, giving them the ownership to those licenses. In our case, we're purchasing a server processor value unit, and so this is ownership is going to go to our global data center across the board. This is how you would populate your group assignment information when you're processing these two licenses. The next section is purchase order process. We do have the ability, if you have a request number, a request date, who requested the purchase, who authorized the spend of the purchase, and who processed that purchase order. You can record all of those from your user directory within Flexera itself. Next tab would be assets. If this is a hardware purchase, we could search for those assets when they arrive and link those assets to this purchase and close this purchase out as you have received the hardware devices. In our case, this is a software item, so we won't have any assets. Next tab would be licenses. This gets populated when you process the purchase to a license record. So if you don't see any licenses on this tab of the purchase record, it means this is an unprocessed purchase. If it had been processed, you would see the license or licenses it has been processed to. Like all of the other data elements and records within the system, have a documents tab and a history tab for the purchase. I'm going to point out one last time how to get to item number 2 and subsequent items after that is you would click copy to new purchase, and you'll see that we have item 2 in that same purchase order.